Athena looks at you with sad eyes. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. The godly society Olympus is observing you quietly. How annoying! The Ice King whipped his head back in surprise at Yeon-woo's abrupt words. What's wrong? It's nothing. Nothing at all. There's just something that's been bothering me from before. The Ice King sighed in relief upon realizing that he wasn't the something that was bothering Yeon-woo. At the same time, he tilted his head in confusion because he didn't know what it was. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. Athena's gaze was now unpleasant for Yeon-woo. Like she didn't plan on turning away anytime soon, she continued to look at him with an emotional gaze. The same went for the other gods. They're probably curious about Tartarus. Olympus had probably realized what Yeon-woo was trying to do. Just by looking at the materials that he needed, one could guess what he was doing. And now, they were focusing on him because they were wondering why he had gotten distracted. However, Athena's gaze was a bit different. A gaze filled with pity. He could almost feel her sympathy from here. He especially didn't like that gaze. Being understood by someone and receiving someone's pity were two completely different things, so he glared at Athena, who was somewhere up in the sky. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. But the message didn't disappear. Eventually, Yeon-woo ignored Athena's gaze and turned his head. He saw Victoria, who looked exhausted but had followed them all the way here. Please go back. No. How do you plan on moving in that state? The effects of the spells had already done everything they could. All kinds of decorations on Victoria's arms, fingers, and ankles were holding her up. The adamantine nova was swirling around Victoria like a planet orbiting a sun, but it couldn't function properly because Victoria didn't have a tool to extract its power. No. I can do it. However, Victoria remained stubborn. When Yeon-woo moved faster to lose her, Victoria forced her tired body to chase after him. But I won't be a burden. If I feel like I am. Victoria bit her lower lip. I'll die on my own. Yeon-woo looked at Victoria. She just looked back at him with firm, unwavering eyes. He knew those eyes well. It was a stubbornness no one could stop. He often had those eyes, too. Then do whatever you please. Yeon-woo gave in. Thank you. She had a small grin on her face. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. First off, will be bait. Bait. Around the time they re-entered the boundaries of the stage, Yeon-woo began to explain his plan. It's important to meet up with Khan, but what's more important is to deflect the people chasing after him. You plan on lessening his burden? Yes. At the same time, he'll hear of where we are. They couldn't find where Khan was no matter how hard they tried. Nike and Nemesis were searching from above, and Boo used his searching magic, but nothing came up. While Victoria had stalled for time, Khan had hidden completely. He knew the 20th floor's geography better than anyone else, having stayed here as a sadhu for a considerable amount of time. If he wanted to hide, no one would be able to hide him. So Yeon-woo had changed his mind. If he couldn't find Khan, he would reveal their location to him. It didn't matter if Khan didn't come to them. As Yeon-woo showed himself, the other descendants of the Monkey King would appear. Then, Khan would have to approach them. Yeon-woo didn't plan on hiding the fact that he had a piece. Then, even though the Devil Army is watching him, he'll have to come. Or Yeon-woo's eyes flashed. Progress with another hidden agenda. Why had Khan chosen the 20th floor out of all the stages? It could be because he was familiar with it and other players would be limited, but Yeon-woo thought there was another reason. It's also where the Monkey King's palace is. It's probably not just a simple coincidence. Anyways, no matter what Khan had planned, it wasn't a waste for Yeon-woo because he would be able to find Khan. You haven't thought about the fact that you'll go through much more, right? Shannon grumbled. Geez, unlike your usual personality, you're weak when it comes to these things. Of course, like what Shannon said, Yeon-woo would have to go through more hurdles, but Yeon-woo was confident he could jump over them. He could heed the request of a friend in danger. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. But how are you going to draw the enemy's attention? Although Victoria was nodding after hearing Yeon-woo's plan, there were still some things she was unclear about. Like this. Yeon-woo grinned. Pat. Krrrrng. Not too far off, there was a great explosion. A column of fire pierced through the forest and reached the sky. Aok. Damn it. How did you know? Kook. Victoria's gaze turned to where the explosion was. She had a look of surprise. The Ice King sighed. People already started tailing us? That was fast. Having crossed over from the chasers to Yeon-woo's side, he felt bleak. He would receive the stigma of a traitor, a term that mercenaries carefully avoided being associated with. He thought about stepping out. Where are you going? Yeon-woo used his open speaking as if he could see the Ice King's movements while he was in the middle of a fight. Ahem. I think I've helped enough already. Do you have any plans of letting me go? Please pick a side. Would he go with them or Yeon-woo? The Ice King hardened his face and spoke in a serious manner. Of course I'm on your side. Whose side would I pick? All right. What should I do first? Asterisk asterisk asterisk. It's impossible at this rate. Spread apart. I can't. It's blocked. Keek. The team of chasers who had been chasing after Yeon-woo, the hidden shadow group, scattered on their commander's orders. They were well known as an assassination group, not a combative group. They usually took requests to kill someone, but they also tailed people and spied on what they were doing. Because they always moved quietly, they weren't exposed, and they were good at keeping secrets, which attracted customers. The same went for now. They had received the request of an ally to look for the hoarder's location and had begun to move carefully. After receiving news that the fourth commander of Iron Lion, Moonwalker, and Streech had been swept away by him, they didn't even plan on confronting him directly. Instead, they quietly chased after him and left signs wherever the hoarder's party moved. Then, another team would let the ally know, and the ally would slowly surround the hoarder's party to trap them. However, they were already exposed despite only leaving a few signs. The hidden shadow group quickly fled without being able to check how they were caught. But it wasn't easy to escape. Kwa. Every time Yeon-woo moved, a heat wave stopped them from moving, and the explosions that came from his sword were decreasing their numbers at a rapid pace. The players who had barely escaped Yeon-woo's attack range were also stopped. A large wall of ice appeared and blocked their escape path. Ice King Elder, what are you doing? The co-captain of the hidden shadow group, Harvey, shouted with a pale face. He hadn't been able to imagine that their trustworthy ally and elder had stood on Yeon-woo's side. All this time, they thought the Ice King had been defeated by the hoarder like Moonwalker. Things happened. Sorry. The Ice King smiled bitterly at them. Until this morning, he had been eating breakfast with them, so he didn't feel comfortable raising his sword against them. However, it was the reality of the mercenary world that close friends could be enemies exchanging swords the next day. The Ice King rid himself of the last of his apologetic sentiments and lightly clapped his hands together. A blue light spread around them. An avalanche began tumbling down as cold air whirled. North Sea ice wave. The ground froze and icicles created an ice thorn bush around them. Harvey and other hidden shadow group members were pierced by the ice thorns and shot up. Blood dripped down the ice and wet the ground, which froze over again. The tool that Victoria temporarily made began to move the adamantine nova. However, because she wasn't in a good condition, she supported her party instead of directly attacking the enemies. When her magic power was somewhat restored, she drew letters in the air. Red rune letters appeared and disappeared with a pop. It was a new magic formation. Clouds rumbled above, and lightning bolted down. Boom. The three were all high rankers. The Ice King was a high ranker from a long time ago, and the abilities that made Yeon-woo considered the best of the 6 new stars were equivalent to those of a high ranker. The hidden shadow group vanished instantly. However, Yeon-woo and the others didn't stop there. There's some here, too. Flying above, Nike delivered the locations of the enemies to Yeon-woo. He quickly got rid of the pursuers on the stage. Krrrng. Rumble. Screams and explosions could be heard from all around the mountains. The tables were turned against the pursuing alliance. They had been planning on cornering Yeon-woo, but with the sudden turn of unexpected events, they were shocked. They were an alliance only in name. Because they were loosely connected, they didn't have a good contingency plan. It was because they all had different objectives. The Iron Lion was searching for the young master on their leader's orders, and the Magic Tower and Necropolis were after the Bien studies. There were also bounty hunters and mercenaries who were only in it for the money. It wasn't easy to create an efficient way to solve the situation. Holes were made in the net that they were trying to create around Yeon-woo's party. He dug deep into the alliance. And Re-D updated STRIs at n/vel/bin.com. He accomplished his first goal. Under the cliff, he could see a large camp. It was the base of the Iron Lion. Ding ding ding. News of the Hoarder's arrival rang in the Iron Lion's base. Players moved frantically, but Yeon-woo began his attack. Kwak Wong. Every stroke of the grid poured fire down from the sky and reduced the base to ruins. Where do you think this is? The vice-clan leader of Iron Lion, Jonathan, rushed over to the scene, grinding his teeth. After Torka, who was like a brother to him, died, he was having a conference about how to take care of the Hoarder with him roaming around the stage. He had frantically rushed over after hearing the news. Jonathan gripped his sword. The Hoarder had been using the hit-and-run method to make the alliance helpless little by little. But he had suddenly appeared. That could only mean one thing. He was looking down on them. The fire turned the sky red and the ground black. Monster portents poured out and slaughtered the players. Then, Yeon-woo turned to him. He was wearing a mask, but his eyes were like an abyss. Jonathan stepped back subconsciously in surprise. Something scary wrapped around his heart. Let me just ask you one thing. What kind of bulls are you gonna talk about? Jonathan shouted to hide the fact that he had been scared for a moment. Regardless, Yeon-woo just asked his question. What does the Iron Lion clan think about Khan? What? Do you think he's the son of the leader? Or simply an enemy? From the tutorial, Khan and Doyle had been wary about speaking about their parents. He knew that they were children of outstanding rankers, but they didn't talk about it. He thought he understood how they felt. Like they were tossed away. Yeon-woo also despised his father, who disappeared suddenly when he was young. He completely erased all memory of the man as he grew up, but he still sympathized with Khan and Doyle. But Khan's father, Iron Lion, was after Khan. If he was just trying to save Khan, Yeon-woo would have considered the clan his ally, but that didn't seem to be the case. They were treating Khan like he was an enemy, no, like he was a criminal. They looked as if they were going to force Khan to go with them once he was caught. However, that was just Yeon-woo's opinion. He didn't know what the Iron Lion clan was actually after. He wanted to listen to what they had to say. His relationship with the Iron Lion clan had gone past the point of no return, but if it was for Khan, he was willing to work with them. Also, as if Yeon-woo's thoughts had been clearly read, Jonathan's gaze turned calm. His boiling fury and violent aura disappeared. Instead, he looked at Yeon-woo with cold eyes. Why are you curious about that? I'm his friend. Friend. The word that he thought he would never say naturally flowed from Yeon-woo's mouth. The shadow containing Shannon and Han Ryeong shook. Friend. But Jonathan just snorted. Did you say friend? He raised a corner of his mouth, forming a cold smile. He is the son of the lion. Do you think lions have friends? He may have learned the habits of wild dogs after hanging out with them, but a lion is still a lion. You don't think that a thing whose roots are unclear like you can really be his friend, right? Kwa. Jonathan gripped swords in each of his hands. It was the dual-wielding technique, which was rare to see in the tower. He's walking the wrong path because he's going through a rebellious phase. It's up to us to lead him on the correct path again. His aura whipped around his blades. The second in command, the pride of the Iron Lion clan. Although he had been pushed back by Yeon-woo for a bit, his abilities were near a high rankers. So whatever your reason is in the end, your purpose is to protect Khan. Yeon-woo stood against his aura and smiled. A short sound of laughter escaped his mask. In one way, it sounded like a laughter of relief, but it also sounded like a scoff. Jonathan was about to step forward in anger again. Get latest oval ch pters on nvelbjane.c/m. What you just said saved your life. What? Jonathan couldn't even shout. Yeon-woo suddenly dropped below. He instinctively tried to step back, pulling his dual blades towards him, but... Kashing! Puig! His right arm felt hot, and his arm was separated from his shoulder. Ki-a-a-a-ok! Yeon-woo briefly appeared behind the screaming Jonathan and spread his wings of fire apart to dig deep into the Iron Lion clan. Even though they're on Khan's side, they're just a bother now. I better decrease their numbers. KRRRNG. ******. Iron Lion. Yvonne was always proud of his name. Iron because he was strong and lion because he ruled the battlefield. A lion made of iron. Invincibility and tenacity symbolized him. But... what a mess! Yvonne laughed in disbelief at the sight in front of him. It had been 10 days since he gave orders to bring his foolish son by the collar. He had brought the 1st Brigade after receiving news that the Iron Lion clan was in danger. What greeted him was a military base in ruins. Out of the 5 brigades he dispatched to the 20th floor, 2 of them were destroyed, 1 of them was half gone, and the remaining 2 were either filled with soldiers who needed to recover or rest for a while. And according to what he heard, each of the bases of the Alliance were attacked, and half of their forces were gone. The destruction wasn't something to take lightly. Loss, what he hated the most, was in front of him. If it was a simple loss, he would have been angry, but he wasn't even angry at this devastating loss. Please kill me, sir. Jonathan got on one knee and lowered his head. He was gritting his teeth. Yvonne silently lowered his body and patted Jonathan's right shoulder. It was an empty shoulder wrapped with bandages. He felt a fire flare inside of him upon looking at it. Who was Jonathan? He was his subordinate who had stayed by his side when he had nothing and held a sword for the first time. No, he was his comrade, his family, and his only friend. Such a friend was in this state. Get up. But... get up. Are you going to continue humiliating me like this? Jonathan raised himself up after receiving Ivan's help. However, because of his injury, his body was trembling. Ivan's face stiffened. The hoarder, you said. Yes. Not only did he dare to get in my way, he touched my people. I heard he was insolent, but I didn't know he was this arrogant. Yvonne turned to look at his subordinate, who still had his head lowered. You? Yes, sir. Male lions led the clan and bared their teeth when his pride of lions was attacked. And when his teeth were bared, he attacked using everything he had. Send people to each base in the alliance. For the leaders to meet that the Iron Lion wants to meet. Immediately. His teeth were bared. And if it seems like they're going to try to drop out. His sharp canines were visible through his lips. Tell them that they'll be ripped apart first. *******. On Ivan's request, the leaders of each group gathered in the Iron Lion clan's camp. Lunatic. Stray Children, founder of 5 Stars, Night Run. Each of them was a powerful clan. With Triton gone, some people said they might be the new emerging clans. However, each of the leaders' faces were dark. A devastating loss. They had suffered huge damages from Yeon-woo's counterattack. There were 4 people whose expressions couldn't be read. Iron Lion Yvonne. Faceless. Dr. Doom. Nocturne. Yvonne received the most damage, but as the king of the mercenary world and the person who called this gathering, he didn't let his emotions show. No, the Iron Lion clan was already called the greatest in the mercenary world. They could bear the damages they received. There were rumors that they were bringing more forces to the 20th floor. Faceless' expression couldn't be read because of the bandages, and Dr. Doom was participating on behalf on all the magic towers and magicians, so he kept his face in check. And Nocturne, the S-class mercenary, looked indifferent as always. Why's everyone standing around trying to look tough? It seems like everyone's here. I think it would be best to get started. In the quiet conference room, Faceless was the first to speak. Faceless spoke in a flippant attitude when a sword suddenly approached Faceless' neck. Clang! Ivan's sword just barely stopped in front of Faceless' neck. Gripping the bandages, Faceless' eyes flashed. What are you doing, Iron Lion? Faceless growled. A violent aura was exuded from him. It was the spirit of a humiliated warrior. Yvonne didn't forget to warn Faceless despite the sudden change in the atmosphere. It's not me who's standing around trying to look tough. It's you guys. What? Yvonne looked around him with intense eyes. The air was filled with a sharp aura. Faceless' eyes widened in surprise. Yvonne was currently considered one of the superior rankers but lacking compared to the 9 kings. However, looking at him now, he seemed nearly as powerful as the 9 kings. That meant he was among the top 100 skilled players. Faceless. I heard you've been chasing after the Hoarder, yet you didn't help our allies when they were being attacked. Faceless looked away and whistled. The situation was disadvantageous to Faceless. Like what Yvonne said, Faceless had only chased after Yeon-woo with the Chest of Souls. It was to check what kind of abilities and souls Yeon-woo had. Yvonne frowned at Faceless' attitude and turned to Dr. Doom and Nocturne. Dr. Doom, I heard you escaped with the magicians and Nocturne just observed the fight. Dr. Doom crossed his arms, not opening his mouth, and Nocturne narrowed his eyes. An emotion flashed across Nocturne's face for the first time. The desire to defeat the Iron Lion. He didn't hear anything else. All he was thinking of was how strong Yvonne was. Nocturne was a hyena who only looked for strong people. The people considered to be the strongest here are only curious about the Bien studies the Hoarder has or where my son is. You don't care about what happens to others. And Yvonne trailed off and looked at the leaders around him. When they met Yvonne in the eye, they either trembled or looked down. The same goes for others. Yvonne spit out his next words. We're only an alliance in name. This isn't a real alliance. Rather, we're fine prey for him to chew apart. Quang! Yvonne brought his fist down on the table. The roar of the lion heated up the atmosphere. From now on, I will not allow individual action. If you don't like it, leave. However, if I catch you here. Instead of speaking, Yvonne bared his fangs. It was clear what he meant. If they didn't follow him, they would die. He was basically saying that he would take charge of the alliance. Each of the leaders of the clans looked at the remaining 3 people. Faceless and Dr. Doom were a part of the new stars. They wouldn't like someone being above them. Nocturne probably felt the same, too. However, Faceless shrugged without saying much, and Dr. Doom nodded. Nocturne looked at Yvonne in the eye but didn't say anything. The alliance was now in Ivan's hands without any opposition. Ivan's blazing eyes were on the 3 whose thoughts couldn't be read. Just then. Quang! The door burst open, and someone came frantically running in. A mercenary of the Iron Lion. All gazes turned to him. An urgent report. What is it? Young master. No, blood sword Khan has been found. Everyone stood up. Yvonne didn't miss how Faceless' eyes flashed peculiarly in that moment. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. What in the world is Kane doing? Khan's eyes widened as he looked at the different battles happening in the stage. The net to capture him had loosened, so he was wondering what was happening. When he looked down below, something unexpected was going on. Yeon-woo, Victoria, and the Ice King were working together to rip the net apart. Far away, he could see the Iron Lion crumbling at a fast pace. Khan had a bitter smile. Although he had left them, the people there were like family. Jonathan was like a kind uncle to him, so he hoped he wasn't badly hurt in the fight with Yeon-woo. Still, it's a relief Nuna doesn't seem to be that hurt. He sighed in relief. After leaving Victoria behind like that, he had constantly been worried. It seemed Yeon-woo had helped her in time. He ended up using them unintentionally, but he was still grateful and apologetic. It wasn't that long until he could save Doyle now. I've gathered enough. Khan spread his palm open. Multiple pieces of the Ruyi Bang floated up and combined into one. They were pieces he was able to obtain because Yeon-woo and the others stalled time for him. It was more than what he had given Gain. The small fish were gone, and only the big ones were remaining, so he had been able to gather more in a shorter amount of time. With this, the sacrificial vessel could be completed. Kindred was already at their meeting place. All he had to do was head there. Pat. Recalling the piece of the Ruyi Bang, Khan began to move again. His destination was the Monkey King's palace, the place where the shedding of the Monkey King resided. It was where he and the others had visited a long time ago. With Yeon-woo diverting attention away from him, he would be able to get there easily. Shriek! High above in the sky, a red bird discovered Khan and cried out. Master! I found Khan! Khan stepped back when something flashed by him. At first, he thought it was an attack from enemies and moved his hand to his sword. Hi! It was a legendary bird of red and black that looked like it was going to blaze up any second, a mythical beast you could only see on the 11th floor. However, unlike its appearance, the tone it spoke in was young. I am Nike. Nice to meet you. Master. No, Yeon, I mean. I have a message from Kane, wanna listen? Khan's eyes widened at the unexpected name. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. He says his closed training will last a bit longer. Is that so? Kreutz nodded in understanding at the reply from the first squad. He knew the regiment leader was going through an important time in his life. AWOL. Countless players cried tears of joy or felt despair and hopelessness from that difference. Some people climbed it easily while others died without ever being able to overcome it. That was what a wall was. Kreutz had tried to jump over his many times, but he hadn't been able to in the end. But the Great Nine Kings jumped over it once, or 3 to 4 times. That was what it meant to be supernatural. The regiment leader took back what he said about his closed training being short and sent word that it would be a while. It seemed he had finished refining the ends but not the actual body. Instead, he sent this. Thank you. I'll be off, sir. The player from the first squad delivered the letter to Kreutz and disappeared with a bow. Kreutz carefully opened the letter and read the paper inside of it. As you wish. It was too short of an answer, considering the time it took for him to receive it. Kreutz found himself laughing. He's the same as ever. Thankfully, he was able to clear up his complicated mind. The question Kreutz had asked the regiment leader was this. Do I have to continue following the Hoarder? From what Kreutz saw, Yeon-woo was too dangerous a person. New N0VEL chapters are published on N0VEL, by N.co/m. He could understand his fight with Bentik. It was a battle of wits among the new rising players. Bentik and Triton had picked the fight first. However, the real problem followed. He had cleared the 30th hidden stage for some mysterious reason and reached Tartarus to meet Hades. He had also met the Gluttony Emperor to promise to fight with them against White Dragon. The same was going on now. While he was absent for a while, Yeon-woo was causing commotion on the 20th floor. They said the hoarder was always to the action. It seemed the rumors were true. Of course, he could understand up to that point. New rising players would be threatened by forces around them, and players who wanted to become strong didn't stay still and clashed with others. The problem, though? The power he has. Kreutz was able to observe a small part of Yeon-woo's power while following him. He used strange shadows and showed the potential of a lord while moving his souls. The potential of a supernaturalist with the sword technique he had learned from the martial kings Muzhong. Furthermore, the possibility of being an apostle from several gods. Lord, supernaturalist, apostle. Out of the three conditions that had to be met to reach the supernatural state, he had all three at the same time. Among those, there was the power of death that Kreutz had never seen before. A power that wasn't something a mortal player should be able to use. He was too dangerous to keep him close. Kreutz's eyes turned darker. And even I haven't seen all of it. The hoarder is dangerous. The regiment leader said the hoarder was his close friend and savior, so Kreutz wanted to support what Yeon-woo did. He thought Yeon-woo would join the fantasy regiment or become their firm ally. But from what he saw until now, if they began to work with Yeon-woo, the damage and pressure the fantasy regiment would receive would be detrimental. That was the reason they hadn't moved onto the higher floors and remained on the lower floors. It was to avoid the attention of the 8 large clans and secretly grow their power. They couldn't break their rule because of one person. However, this was the reply that came back. As he wished. It meant that the regiment leader wouldn't impose his will on Kreutz. In a way, it looked like he was respecting his comrades, and at the same time, it seemed irresponsible, like he was giving his duties to someone else. The regiment leader was the same as ever. Kreutz fell deep into contemplation while holding the letter. If he did what he wanted, he would no longer support Yeon-woo. But still, the times he had spent with him flashed before his eyes while he tried to make a decision. From the River of Souls to Tartarus. The journey was dangerous but made his heart beat faster. More than anything, there was something about Yeon-woo that drew people towards him. Like a king. Still, seeing how he desperately pleaded for Cunning in front of Hades, it seemed as if he had a long backstory. It was natural to want to follow such a person and see how he ended up, like a moth drawn to a flame. He was too fearsome to be kept close but too interesting to watch from far away. He's like the regiment leader in this way. No, these thoughts might have been what the regiment leader was aiming for. Making a decision, Kreutz folded the letter into his breast pocket and called for a subordinate outside. Kun. Yes, sir. Did you call for me? A subordinate waiting outside came in and bowed his head. Is the hoarder still on the 20th floor? Yes, sir. Call the knightage. We're going to the 20th floor. Yes, sir. And like that, the fantasy regiment began to make its move. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. On the bloodied mountain. Corpses lying all over the ground indicated there had been a rough battle. What a monster! The person the players were looking at didn't seem like a human. Everyone nodded in agreement that he seemed like a monster. There was fear in their eyes. Ha! Ha! Yeon-woo panted, drenched in blood. His health and magic power were nearly drained because he had fought against so many players. But the aura around him was still fierce. It felt as if one would immediately die if one went into his attack range. And because the players knew that really would happen, none of them could easily approach Yeon-woo. No, even with that aside, the martial arts Yeon-woo had shown them was replaying in their heads. How many clans had suffered losses, and how many people had fallen. Horrifying monsters came from the shadows and led them deep into despair. The rumors that the hoarder might already be a lord were proving to be true. A lord who created a one-man army and easily defeated most clans. Moreover, the hoarder was showing potential as a supernaturalist as the martial king's disciple. Whether they tried to fight one-on-one or work with each other against Yeon-woo, he couldn't be defeated. Furthermore, there's still something left. They could feel it in their bones. Yeon-woo wasn't using his full strength. If he had hidden 30% of his power despite the fight becoming this rough, it would only be disadvantageous to them. Additionally, the people who were helping Yeon-woo were Red Deodara and Ice King, famous, skilled players. There wasn't a way to get past them. They stayed in that condition, not able to attack or fall back. If you don't come. Yeon-woo's eyes shined violently. I'll go. He was breathing in a more comfortable voice after having rested enough. The players who were creating a net around him stepped back instinctively. Smirk. Seeing them, the Ice King laughed lightly. It was a laughter closer to pity than amusement. The players standing in the front turned red. They were about to shout, wanting to redeem themselves. Suddenly. Pew, pew. Fireworks exploded in the sky. Red fireworks. The players' faces turned stiff. It was the command to retreat. The leaders had hesitant faces, wondering whether to leave or not, but they gave the order to fall back upon deeming that they couldn't continue to fight like this. Everyone, retreat. While the players stepped back, they moved quickly in case Yeon-woo and the others attacked them as they ran. After the Ice King confirmed that everyone was gone, he tilted his head in confusion. Why is everyone going back? Well, whatever, I can rest now. The Ice King looked down at his bloody, shaking hand. He couldn't remember the last time he had fought this roughly. He smiled bitterly. He had joined Yeon-woo's side because there wasn't anything he could do, but he felt refreshed. It seemed a martial artist was still a martial artist even if one was old. But it was true that he was tired more easily. If the fight continued from here, he might have fallen first. Victoria's face didn't look too good either. Using the adamantine nova with an injured body wasn't easy on her. She was also relieved that they retreated, but she felt curious as to why they did. If the fight went on longer, Yeon-woo's party would have been the ones in danger. Victoria and the Ice King turned to Yeon-woo. Yeon-woo was also tired, so he plopped down on the floor and caught his breath. His overheated Philosopher's Stone supplied him with magic power. What he said after surprised the other two greatly. They're probably stepping back because they found Khan. They found Khan. Victoria burst up in surprise. Thump. Thump. Her heart started to beat faster. The face that she had seen for a short while. The hope that she could see that face again grew in her heart. Yes. For now. Where is he? You know it well. I do. Victoria tilted his head. The mountains were indeed familiar to her. But for Yeon-woo to pick it out? Could it be? Her face slightly became pale. Yeon-woo nodded heavily. Yes. It's the Monkey King's palace. Victoria's grip tightened on the adamantine nova. Memories of back then suddenly popped into her head. The dangerous movements of the stone statue. Rebecca's death. Yeon-woo's sacrifice. The escape with Khan. And running away, alone. It was the place that gave her nightmares. But she was still scared to go there, but if she could save Khan, she had to go. Yeon-woo nodded in relief. Actually, if he saw her trembling, he had planned to take the adamantine nova from her and force her to go back. But she had done everything she needed to while they were in battle. The Ice King tilted his head, not following. The Monkey King's palace? What's that? Yeon-woo began to explain the Monkey King's palace. The Ice King's eyes deepened after hearing everything. Where the 72 Bien are from? Yes. It's where I got my Ruyi Bang piece. So it's similar to the Monkey King's temple. Monkey King's Temple. Yeon-woo became curious at the Ice King's muttering. There's a place. It's outside of the tower. To be exact, it's the Temple of the Seven Demon Kings, but it's called the Monkey King's Temple among the Apostles. It's surrounded with barriers to prevent outsiders from entering. Yeon-woo thought of the place where he had first looked for traces of Khan. Are you talking about where the statues of the Seven Demon Kings are? Yes. Do you know it? Yes. But I couldn't feel anything. That place is already looted. It's well known, too. There's probably almost nothing left. Yeon-woo thought the Ice King seemed a bit sad. It was probably from the shame of being only a half-descendant. And also, a thought occurred to him. So the Monkey King didn't leave his traces in just one or two places. He had thought the same thing when he had left the Monkey King's palace. The shedding had also said that the Monkey King had left several places for his descendants. Yeon-woo made a note to go back to the temple and look around closely. When he first went, he had pretty much been chased out, so he might have missed something. Anyways, why would the blood sword go there? The reason is simple. It'll be the base of the Devil Army, the people behind all this. There was one reason why Khan had shown himself. Because it was his final destination. And in that place. Doyle. Yeon-woo's eyes flashed. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. After their short break, they headed towards the fifth mountain immediately. It was to prevent the Alliance from getting there first. Thankfully, it seemed there was no trap set up when they got there. People probably couldn't set a trap because it was hard for rankers to approach here in the first place. All senses were closed, and only consciousness could be opened. Yeon-woo unleashed all his consciousness and began to search for the entrance to the Monkey King's palace. Yeon-woo had destroyed the entrance when he left with the inheritance so others couldn't approach it, so he had to find a new entrance. Your temper led to this. Yup, what a shame. Shut up. While he was scolding the mocking Shannon, Yeon-woo was able to find the entrance with Nike's help. Nike had been following Khan all this time. You have entered the hidden stage, the Monkey King's palace. A hidden stage, not a dungeon. Yeon-woo's eyes became bigger at the changed name. As if they were expected, someone quietly walked out from the entrance and greeted Yeon-woo's party. You. Long time no see, Kane. Khan greeted them happily. Khan. Victoria ran forward to hug Khan, but her body passed through his. This is a shadow he left behind. Yeon-woo muttered, watching the fading Khan. It was an illusion made using the 72 bien. Taking into consideration the trick Khan left in the letter, it seemed Khan was better than Yeon-woo in bien studies. Khan's shadow smiled bitterly and lowered himself to look Victoria in the eye. Are you all right, Nuna? You. Sorry I left in a rush back then. But I guess I'm a lucky person, hey? I have friends who'll jump into danger for me. Khan laughed brightly like his usual self and turned to Yeon-woo. First. Since kindred might notice, I'll get to the point directly. Yeon-woo nodded. You heard the details from Nike, right? Yeah. Nike was currently with Khan. Yeon-woo was able to hear about the situation Khan was in from Nike. A sacrificial vessel. The fight around the vessel. Doyle was being held by the Devil Army, and Khan had been busy trying to rescue him. Khan had been going through a difficult trial, so he hadn't been able to tell anyone. Through Nike, Yeon-woo explained what he had planned to Khan. I left this shadow behind to ask you for a favor. What is it? It's. Khan opened his mouth to speak. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. So it's here. Yvonne squinted in the narrow entrance of the cave. It felt like everything would be sucked in by the abyss. Nothing could be felt. He couldn't sense anything despite shooting his consciousness in. Yes. He definitely went in here. Jonathan nodded heavily next to him. The alliance had restructured itself under Ivan's command. Then, they waited until Yeon-woo arrived where Khan was. They knew Yeon-woo's target was Khan, so they decided that it was efficient to catch both of them when they were together. Faceless and Dr. Doom didn't say anything about it. They weren't going to lead the forces at the front lines anyway, and the same went for Nocturne. Yvonne frowned at their uncaring attitude. They weren't helping, but they weren't just sitting around either. Weary heading in. And since they didn't do anything to be scolded for, he couldn't hold them responsible. No, he could do that when everything was finished. Right now, he had to focus on catching Yeon-woo and Khan. They had trapped themselves in a small fence, so it would be easier to catch them. According to Ivan's command, about 300 of the strongest players got in line and began to step into the cage. Check-esh. It's really ominous. Was this place always here? The players frowned as they looked around. No matter how much they expanded their consciousness, they couldn't feel anything. There wasn't much they could feel other than themselves and the people near them. It was like walking in the dead of night without light. They were proud of themselves for being strong enough not to be scared at most things, but an anxiousness began to creep in their minds. "Sir, will you be all right?" A robed magician quietly approached Dr. Doom and whispered. There were many magicians in the 300 strongest players that Yvonne had designated. They were not only black magicians from Necropolis but also the strongest from each magic tower. But that didn't mean they were strong fighters or good at combat. Especially in this hidden stage filled with darkness, rash movements were strictly forbidden. From what the magicians saw, the cave that Yeon-woo and Khan had entered was filled with mysteries. The path was curvy, and no matter how many tracking spells they casted, they all disappeared in the air. They felt like if they shot forward any more of their consciousness, their souls would be sucked in the deep cave. Because they were magicians, they knew what it was. Emptiness. Also a space called void. No, it couldn't even be called a space. There was nothing there, and the nothing swallowed all. They didn't understand why Yeon-woo and Khan had entered it. However, one thing they knew for sure was that if they continued to walk into the void, they would be in danger. EW Ovals Up Tez on novel/bi.com. There was nothing bad in today's card. Then. But there wasn't anything good. Dr. Doom's eyes flashed intensely. This means our divination for today depends on us. And without Bien, we won't have any divinations in the future. Yes, sir. I said something I shouldn't have. I apologize. The different fields of magic split up and combined again. Magicians walked what they believed was the path of truth. But recently, the magic towers had changed their minds and desired to combine all their power. The latest events of the tower impacted the magic towers, and they decided that they needed to become anew. Each magic tower had sent their strongest to create a new organization. Necropolis. And they put Dr. Doom, who was familiar with all magic, on the leader's seat. But it's more dangerous now to create a new foothold. It wasn't easy to combine the different paths of magic into one. The knowledge, formation, and basis of the magic were different. To overcome their limits, they needed new knowledge. In Dr. Doom's eyes, it was Bien. The hidden card to grow their limited magic. Unless Faust's mage technique comes back. The new field of magic that had opened new horizons for magic studies along with Deroy's demon studies. Some said that Faust had even devoured the demon and monster king, Mephistopheles, but after his sudden disappearance, he became a story passed down in myths. His power was the root of the divination that Dr. Doom frequently checked, and it was what he had promised himself to achieve. Even if we can't obtain Bien studies, we can't let anyone else get it. Dr. Doom looked at Faceless, who was laughing like a lunatic, and Nocturne, who he couldn't read. Most players in this alliance were after the Bien or honor, but he couldn't tell why those two had come. He couldn't help but be wary of them. Especially Faceless, who seemed like a combination of many different identities, was the person that Dr. Doom considered the most dangerous. He cast magic in front of him in an attempt to search deep in the cage again and widened his eyes. What's this? There was nothing. Neither around him nor anywhere. There was nothing about this in the divination. The subordinate he had just been speaking with was gone. All he felt was darkness. Vines of the void from inside of the cave wrapped around him. That moment. Hub. Dr. Doom whipped his body around. Magic circles were drawn in the air and destroyed the attacks from the darkness. Pyo. But because the impact was too great, Dr. Doom wasn't able to avoid it all and was blown away. Blood spilled from his mouth. Magic power quickly circulated around his body and bound his broken bones together, his dislocated shoulder spinning back into its position. Shock filled his face. What was that? You. Read. That? I'm. Impressive. Just then, two lines were drawn in the middle of the air, and they opened to reveal blue eyes. Eyes it? That. The heart. Of. Another species. Sephiroth Kabbalah. Mysterious. Studies. Into. A magic. Circle. Has. They. World. Improved. Dr. Doom's eyes trembled. That was how his signature skill, the random magic circle release, was made. How had it been recognized instantly? When he met the inferno sight in the sky, his head turned blank. It was that. In the fight against Yeon-woo on the 30th floor, the eyes that had bound his magic power, magic circles, and his divinations. Those eyes. He realized it was the monster who trapped over 300 members in the emptiness and isolated him. What are you? Ah. You're. Not. You're. A mutant. Another secret was revealed. Dr. Doom calmed his trembling hand and flicked his thumb. About 10 magic circles floated up above him. The inferno sight narrowed its eyes and muttered, not caring. Like a child observing ants. Yuri. A toy. Trying to. Imitate. Me. How. Amusing. You. Fools. What? Imitate who? On. Top. Of. Trying to. Bother. Masters. Plan. I'll punish. You. For your. Foolishness. The inferno sight flamed up, growing bigger. Shall. We. Kwang. Dr. Doom felt like the space around him was being forced apart. When he came to attention, his limbs were all twisted. The magic circles wrapped around him were all cracked. No. That person is. After realizing Boo's identity, the mental shock was greater than the physical pain he felt. The similar scene was happening across the cave. Dreams. Dusk. On Nemesis's words, the void settled down and separated the players. This was the Monkey King's palace. Yeon-woo was the only person who knew how everything was set up from the entrance to the quarters in the center. It was a trap he had made because he knew that void was always in the air. Keek. What's this? Och. Save me. Players couldn't get a grip on themselves as monster portents poured onto them from the darkness. Crunch, crunch. They were slaughtered. No matter how hard they tried to resist, there was no way to catch the monster portents that disappeared back in the void and attacked their blind spots. The moment they were injured, they died from being poisoned. That wasn't the end of it. Clack, clack. Rumble. The abyss began to open in different places. Ashy fog spewed out, and something dark showed itself. Undeads consisting of skeletons, ghouls, and zombies. It was an army of death in armor. Dungeon release. Boo's hidden dungeon had opened up. What is this? Yvonne ripped apart the darkness that kept on sticking on him. But what appeared after was a countless number of undead that filled the cave. His face hardened at the extraordinary phenomenon. Check-esh. Just then, pieces of the void gathered into a large shape. What Ivan saw was incredibly shocking despite all the experience he had under his belt. Boom! A red and black foot stomped forward. Wings of bones spread apart, and a horrible toxic gas floated over towards him. There were only bones left behind, but its aura was just as strong as when it was living. Cray-a-a-a-a. The dragon that came out into the world for the first time roared. Dragon fear spread out. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The surrounding territory has been chosen as your domain. Current condition, void, nemesis. Curse, wandering has succeeded. Curse, fear has succeeded. Curse, madness has succeeded. Curse, illusion has succeeded. The authority, faceless law, has activated. Hundun is very glad. Tien, Hundun will be changed to Hundun for accuracy. A message from Agars has arrived. Message, you're different from the others. A message from Agars has arrived. Message, try using mine, too. You'll get a better result. The authority Hyoungshin Axel has been activated. The curses have been strengthened. The curses have been strengthened. All gods of death nod at you. All demons of death whistle at you. The demonic society G-sect expresses deep goodwill towards you. The demonic society El Infernal is happy. Vimalasitra of G-sect observes you carefully. A small number of demons start to look closely at you. More demons offer authorities to you than before. Your directory of possible authorities has been updated. Current authorities, 512. Athena is silent. Yeon-woo smiled coldly at the messages pouring in. Dungeon release. He had prepared it with Boo but had never opened it. The results were better than he expected. The void that Nemesis brought made everyone panic, and monster portents jumped in to fan the fire. With the dungeon added on top, it was like dropping a bomb on top of their heads. The soldiers died and died. Mercenaries backed on a cliff were melted from minus energy and turned into Boo's energy. Ivan, whom he had been worrying about the most, was struggling against the bone dragon with Shannon riding atop it. I was worried because it was incomplete, but this is way better than I expected. You have gained souls. You have gained souls. New souls were filling up the collection as fast as they were being drained. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say the entire battlefield was in Boo's palm. He had set up a trap knowing the Alliance was chasing after him. It helped that he hadn't shown them his full strength. And my list of authorities is longer. Were they mostly sent by gods and demons of death? I should take a closer look at it later. He already had 4 authorities, but since he had raised their proficiency, it was time to look for additional ones. Actually, Yeon-woo didn't want to accept any more authorities, so he didn't care about the list getting longer. The reason was simple. He wasn't confident he could master all of them. And once he did accept it, the interference of the authority's owner would increase. He didn't want to be limited in his actions. However, with his skills more developed and his body more fit, he thought it would be alright to take additional authorities. Authorities had the identity of gods and demons. Just by accepting and using them, he could grow. Although, the owner would interfere. It wouldn't be bad to accept more authorities to make gods and demons wary of each other. The gods and demons of death were already interested because of the Black King. Whether he had the authorities or not, his actions would be limited. If so, it wouldn't be bad to accept all of them and make the gods and demons wary of each other. In the case of one trying to step up, other gods and demons would stop it. The tables would be turned. While Yeon-woo was busy checking the list of authorities that amounted to over 500. I was wise to choose this side. The Ice King's side. This was it. The reason he had surrendered as soon as he saw Yeon-woo. Technically, the Ice King and Yeon-woo might not have been that different ability-wise. However, he knew what would happen if they were enemies. Yeon-woo's master, the Martial King, had been exactly like that. No. He's worse than the Martial King when he was in his prime. It was an extreme relief that they weren't enemies. The monster portents he had were horrifying enough, but to think he could control ghosts and skeletons, too. The bone dragon was especially jaw-dropping. If his guess was right, that bone dragon was. The Ice King stopped his thoughts there and shook his head. It was best not to dive any deeper. That was the lesson he had learned during his lifetime as a mercenary. Victoria looked at the cave with silent eyes. Above the space where the adamantine nova was rotating, they could see the mercenaries dying off. The problem was that the slaughter wouldn't end there. Considering all the players on the stage, the 300 players sent into the cage were just the tip of the iceberg. Thinking about the people that would be sent in the second and third waves, it would be no exaggeration to say that the mercenaries, magicians, and bounty hunters on the stage would be swept away. And afterwards, what kind of chaos would follow in the hoarder's wake? We stalled for time with this, but it's not over yet. When Yeon-woo opened his mouth, Victoria and the Ice King shook themselves and turned to him. Victoria. Yet. You're going to look for the Monkey King's shedding now, right? Victoria thought of the conversation she had with Khan's shadow and Yeon-woo. I left this shadow behind to ask you for a favor. What is it? It's Doyle. Khan's shadow paused and put emphasis on his next words. Save Doyle. The conversation that began with those words explained everything that Khan had been through and what was going on inside of the cave. Explore Todd TE stories at noel/bin.cm. And exactly how many soldiers of the Devil Army were inside the Monkey King's palace. There are 5 bishops in the central palace. They're waiting for the signal. Their goal is the completion of the sacrificial vessel. It's a vessel to contain the Monkey King's shedding beyond this palace. And they're planning on bringing the heavenly demon's subordinate, the dragon god. The materials needed are the Ruyi Bang pieces. That's why I was ordered to gather them all this time. However, there needs to be a ceremony to hold the shedding in the vessel. So they sacrificed humans across all of the 5 mountains. They used the dead players as offerings, while also gathering pieces at the same time. It was all hard to believe. Vessel. Shedding. Ceremony. Human sacrifice. But in a way, it was expected of the Devil Army. They were a religious group, no, cult, serving the heavenly demon, so it wasn't strange for them to go through with such a religious service. Doyle is in there. Unconscious. When the service starts, I'll block off Kindred and the others, so in the meantime, save Doyle. The words in the letter said to help Doyle. However, Yeon-woo didn't respond right away. Instead, he asked another question. Why did the Devil Army take Doyle? Khan's shadow paused and replied in a dark voice. Doyle is a candidate for the new head bishop's body. With those words, the shadow disappeared. It was probably because Khan's actual body had gone deeper in the cave and was blocked by the void. Yeon-woo was deep in thought for a long time, like he was contemplating something. And after some time passed, he began to move again, leaving the preparation to block the chase of the Alliance. What is he trying to do? Victoria thought Yeon-woo might have some kind of plan. However, she didn't know what it was. Please watch over this place. Yeon-woo sat on the floor and closed his eyes. Like Yeon-woo asked, Victoria set up a barrier and got ready for any sudden attack. The Ice King stood guard with sharp eyes. Above them, wind gathered, and Rebecca appeared and disappeared again. Hween. Yeon-woo's consciousness settled down. He recalled the consciousness he expanded outside and trod through each of his senses. He could feel all kinds of vestiges complexly tied up together, including his. He had attempted to get rid of all traces of the 72 Bien last time, but it seemed like there were still some left behind. They could be called evil Neon. Yeon-woo held onto the ones that felt clearest. Then, it felt like his body was floating up. You have succeeded in leaving your body. You are leaving the limits of your physical body. There are limits to your stats because of your new condition. Your current condition is unstable. You are a living being. If you do not return to your body within the set time or go too far away, you may die. 30 minutes. 00:29:59.99 00:29:59.98 Your understanding of souls has increased. When he looked down, he could see himself sitting crisscrossed with Victoria and the Ice King protecting him. It's interesting to see myself like this. It was only possible because they were near the Monkey King's shedding. Yeon-woo turned his head in another direction. He was only given 30 minutes. He had to take care of business before then and return. Far beyond, into the abyss, something was calling him. Like the story of how the little girl climbed up the rope to avoid the tiger, Yeon-woo ascended while holding onto the signal. Then, many things spread under him. The place he was in became smaller. He could see the Alliance fighting Boo, many intertwined paths like ant tunnels, and the second squad that now began to enter the entrance. Then, Yeon-woo felt himself being absorbed somewhere else. The world around him changed. Wag! Yeon-woo found himself in a familiar place. A mountain with fruit trees and waxberry trees. An exotic utopia with warm sunlight and fresh breezes. It was Mount Hwaguo. Monkey King. Monkey King. Are you here? Khan had said that he would try to stop the ceremony and that Yeon-woo should save Doyle during that time. It was a feint operation. But from what Yeon-woo saw, that was dangerous. The Devil Army wouldn't be fooled that easily. More than anything, the strategy Khan suggested required his sacrifice. Saving Doyle and sacrificing Khan? Khan could think that it was an obvious choice, but to Yeon-woo, it was like throwing Khan away. So Yeon-woo was going to flip Khan's strategy around. The best thing would be to abort the ceremony. If he hid the Monkey King's shedding before the ceremony began, then everything the Devil Army did would go up in flames. Then, there would be some chaos, and he would have time to think of a method to save both Khan and Doyle. But he's not here. Yeon-woo's face hardened. Where is he? Yeon-woo searched the mountain with his wings of fire, but he couldn't find the Monkey King's shedding anywhere. There weren't any traces of him. It was quiet, like an abandoned world. However, this was definitely the imaginary world that the shedding had created. If the owner of the world disappeared, the world would have crumbled as well. Then where was he? Was he already moved into the vessel? No. The ceremony hasn't begun yet. Then, Nike would have let him know. I don't see the blue dragon either. The dragon god, Sheng, who was the heavenly demon's subordinate, couldn't be seen either. 00:12:29.41 Meanwhile, the clock was still ticking. Just when he was thinking that he should return soon. Pat! Suddenly, light shined in front of Yeon-woo, and something small floated up. The power within it was dynamic. It was a familiar power. Sheng. The power of the dragon god. The form shook in response like it was nodding, and it suddenly began to move quickly. Yeon-woo quickly chased after it with his wings of fire. It was so fast that he could only follow after it using wind path gale and blink consecutively. Where he arrived was a small cave off from Mount Hwaguo. Are you telling me to go in here? The form shook again and disappeared. Yeon-woo narrowed his eyes and entered the cave. It was damp in a different way from the Monkey King's palace. However, the path wasn't that long, so he quickly arrived at the end. Arg, I'm not doing it. It's annoying, so why do you keep? Monkey King. Hey? It was you. The Monkey King was sitting on the ground, his body wrapped in chains. Was it really him? Unlike when they first met, he looked so feeble. The Monkey King looked at Yeon-woo through his messy hair and cringed. This is embarrassing. Thwok. Khan stumbled at the pain of his cheek being slapped, but he didn't fall and regained his balance. Fortunately, the pieces in his hand didn't drop to the floor. Kindred smirked at him. Do you think things will change? That I don't know what you're thinking. It's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Misunderstanding. Kindred scoffed. Thwack. He hit Khan's other cheek. This time, it was so painful that Khan felt like his neck was twisted. The inside of his mouth was torn, and he could taste blood. I really don't like that word. Regardless of Khan's condition, Kindred's eyes were flashing sharply. You can use that word for anything. It's a misunderstanding. I think there's been a misunderstanding. If you use that word, it excuses you from anything. Right. Again, it's all a misunderstanding. Really? What an omnipotent word. Kindred flicked his finger. The pieces of the Ruyi Bang in Khan's palm floated up and whirled above him. Sure. Try doing whatever you want. People should always take the chances they get. You won't be bored then. A man behind Kindred quietly stepped up and held something out. It was a golden sphere. The sphere began to shine. The pieces whirling above gathered towards it and landed in the hollow parts of the sphere. Clack, clack. The sacrificial vessel slowly took shape. There were hundreds of pieces gathered, so it couldn't be called a piece anymore. Khan looked at it with his jaw clenched. Of the pieces, there were some that the Devil Army used to own, but 40% of it was what he had obtained after going through near-death situations. For the last few years, he had acted as the Devil Army's assassin. He killed any descendants the Devil Army discovered and took their pieces. He didn't even want to think about how many people he had killed in that process. But every time, Kindred was happier. A bloodied piece would have more grudges. He said there was no better material to finish the vessel. Khan may have been a demon, but Kindred was an even greater demon. The heavenly demon? He felt like he knew why the divine being was deep in slumber, not responding to their calls. Who would like such lunatics? The current head bishop was the one who disposed of the previous head bishop, Black Dawn, and some other bishops to sit on the throne. He didn't have a legitimate tie to the throne, so he had to depend on the heavenly demon. No matter how much others called him a heretic, if he received the favor of the heavenly demon, he would be legitimate. But the heavenly demon didn't listen to the head bishop's desperate pleas. So the head bishop had to use another way. If the heavenly demon didn't respond, he could find the other faces of the heavenly demon and serve them. Khan, who was only a sword wielder, didn't know the exact teachings of the Devil Army. However, he did know that whenever the heavenly demon was reincarnated through samsara, he would teach important things to the world or learn something to make his soul even more complete. He also knew that the Devil Army called those other faces of the heavenly demon. It was a term for the previous lives of the heavenly demon. The Monkey King was one of the strongest lives of the heavenly demon. Of course the head bishop desired the Monkey King. But the real Monkey King had disappeared when the heavenly demon entered into a slumber, so bringing his shedding was the wisest choice. They would do it with the sacrificial ceremony. Everything was prepared. The shedding was bound tightly with divine iron because he refused to leave the palace, and sacrifices were spread throughout the mountains for his descent. The altar was prepared. Fire burned in the bronze braziers. All the officials of the Devil Army, the bishops, diocesan bishops, high priests, normal priests, and honorary priests were there. Now, only the prayer ceremony was left. The moment the descent succeeded, they would immediately exterminate all the insects that dirted the holy territory in the 5 mountains. And after that? Let's not think about it. Khan shut his eyes. They probably wouldn't be able to succeed with the prayer ceremony. He wouldn't let them. That, in itself, would cause a commotion, but he didn't want to think about what came next. You said the insects in this sacred place have nothing to do with you. Kindred opened his mouth, looking at the shining sacrificial vessel. Khan opened his shut eyes and bowed. Yes, sir. Sacred place. He was talking about the Monkey King's palace. Yeon-woo's party and the chasers were insects that needed to be taken care of for daring to step into such a sacred place. Then come back after you get rid of them all. Only then will you get what you want. Kindred's gaze turned towards the altar. In front of the bronze braziers, a robed man was praying. His youthful face could be seen through the slight movement of the robe. There was a subtle light shining around him. He looked like a saint. Kong grit his teeth and bowed. Thank you for trusting me. You three, follow him. 4, 5, 6. 3 apostles followed Khan. Khan left the central palace with them in tow. Kindred snorted, looking at Khan walk away, and slowly moved to the finished sacrificial vessel. The remaining third bishop quietly followed him. Why are you letting him live? He's a hunting dog who can't be used anymore. Obviously, the Devil Army wasn't planning on upholding their promise, even if Khan did all they asked. Doyle was an important key who would lead them to a new era. They needed to take care of Khan quietly. Who said I'm letting him live? Kindred snorted. Weary in front of a holy altar. We've already given plenty of sacrifices, is there a need to use dirty blood? It'll just be bad luck. I didn't think about it deeply enough. The third bishop belatedly realized Kindred's plans. He was planning on cleaning Khan up after all the insects were taken care of. Khan would be tired then, so he wouldn't be able to avoid it. Then let's begin the ceremony. Kindred walked up the 5 stairs and put the completed sacrificial vessel on the altar. He wasn't the one leading the prayer ceremony. His role was only one of a butler who helped the one in charge lead it smoothly. The man praying in front of the altar slowly took off his robe. Doyle raised his head with pupilless eyes. Then, he opened his mouth. Please answer, other face of the heavenly demon. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Ah. Are you okay? While leaving through the entrance, Khan heard Nike's voice and nodded subtly. It was a small movement, so the bishops next to him didn't notice. Yet. I'm fine, so don't worry. Nike had been in Khan's mind, quietly resting there. Nike was such an innocent and kind child. Khan wondered how a guy like Yeon-woo had been able to meet him. He must have activated holy fire because the injury in his mouth quickly healed. Khan was about to thank him when Nike carefully spoke up. Hey. Yet. What kind of friend is Doyle? Nike wondered if he had asked something he shouldn't have. But Khan laughed lightly and answered nonchalantly. A hateful bastard. Hate. Full. Khan could feel that Nike was curious about why he was saving him if he was so hateful. His smile deepened. Yet, he's hateful. He never listens to me and talks back. I can't beat him up either. Ugh. Khan began to explain his backstory as he introduced Doyle. It's a bit boring, but do you want to listen? Yet. I like stories like this. Thinking that Nike was the type of child old-timers would like, Khan continued. Khan was 14 when he first met Doyle. At the time, things were cold between Khan and his father, Iron Lion. He coincidentally met a ranker called Red Skull, who came as a customer. Doyle was a 10-year-old child who tagged along. Red Skull. This really dark, old guy. He's the third bishop. Nike was greatly surprised. That meant that he had given his son to the head bishop. Did that make sense? It does. To those lunatics. They probably think it's nothing to sell their children to gain their god's favor. No way. Nike, who only had good memories of his mother, couldn't believe it. You can't attempt to understand this world with logic. Khan's voice was cynical. Khan, who was furious at his father, and Doyle, who was disgusted by his family. It wouldn't be a mere coincidence that the two met and created a plan in the span of a few hours to work together. And the 2 children left a short note saying not to look for them and left. Not much, hey. Khan laughed. But Nike shook his head. No, Khan felt like he did. It's like looking at me and master. You too. Yet. Khan felt strange. We went through something similar. And Khan, you're like master. Me. And him? Nah. How can you compare me to such a dry human? Am I not a bit more good-looking, though? Khan made a light joke. No. You're similar. Very. Nike spoke firmly. Master is the same as you. Wanting to save his little brother. I'm jealous. I wasn't able to save my older brothers. Khan stopped walking. What? Why did you suddenly stop? The bishops behind Khan frowned, but Khan didn't hear them. A shiver went down his spine. What are you talking about? Me? No. Kane. Khan's voice was low. He had a little brother. Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about this. Nike hesitated for a bit, then began to explain Yeon-woo's situation, leaving the important parts out. A little brother who was trapped somewhere. Yeon-woo's lonely journey to Tartarus. A clue about his brother's whereabouts and what Yeon-woo did to gain it. That's why Master came here. To find you after getting that letter. Khan's body trembled. He felt like he had been hammered in the head. Yeon-woo came to save his little brother? That guy? That moment, images of what he had been through with Yeon-woo flashed through his head. Sometimes, I'm jealous of you guys. In the tutorial, Yeon-woo looked at Doyle and himself with longing eyes. His face was covered by a mask, but his eyes were filled with gloom. In the 5 mountains, Yeon-woo expressed his pity for his separation from Doyle. Then, Yeon-woo had said that he could tell him anything. He hadn't known at the time. He just thought Yeon-woo must have had something going on, too. He never explained his personal business. His mouth was always closed. However, what kind of emotions were in his eyes when he looked at them? Grief? Pain? Whatever it was deeper than what he had thought. And everything would have been painful to Yeon-woo. But I forced the guy. The guy who barely found a clue about his brother to come here. They had similar goals. His shock turned into guilt. The guilt drenched his body, drowning him. It turned into self-hatred. He looked down at his hands. He couldn't see them because his sight was gone, but his 2 hands were shaking. What have I done? Asterisk. Why are you like this? In Yeon-woo's memory, the Monkey King's shedding was a confident and proud being. The aura he exuded wouldn't fall short of Hermes's. But right now, his bloodied existence felt faint. What had happened? And what were those chains around him? I don't know. Don't ask. But he still had his pride, so he whipped his head and grumbled. A thought occurred to Yeon-woo while he was looking at him. In this condition. Find you chapters on nfellby.com. He looked down at his left hand. Would Bathory's vampiric sword work? What's up with that look? Do you wanna die? The Monkey King's shedding frowned and growled. Yeon-woo flinched because he knew that he had been thinking about something ridiculous, but since the Monkey King hadn't read his mind, he decided to be shameless. I don't know what you're talking about, sir. Geez, all these bastards left and right. They only have thoughts of betrayal. Woo. The shedding sighed, extremely annoyed. How did you end up like this? I know, right? It's so embarrassing why I am. Wait. Hey, let's talk later. Yeon-woo was about to ask why, but he felt something approaching them and quickly hid his presence behind a column. Soon, someone walked into the cave. Yeon-woo's eyes widened when he realized who it was. Kindred. The second bishop of the Devil Army grinned mischievously like a child as he spoke. I came to greet you today as well, other face of the heavenly demon. How have you been, sir? Did you sleep well? I would feel better if I didn't have to see your face. Oh, dear. That's a shame. I want to help with that, but the people who can come here to serve you are limited. That's why I said I don't need any of that, so untie me right now. The Monkey King lifted up the chains that bound his arms and legs. They made a clacking sound as the chains connected to the wall extended and fell back down on the ground again. You said I'm one of the gods you serve? Then how can you treat a god like this? I would like to help you with that as well. Kindred raised a corner of his mouth. But won't you try to kill me then? No. Why would I kill you? Really? Of course. I won't just kill you. I'll rip you apart. The shedding's eyes turned sharp. Walk. An intense, murderous aura settled upon them. It was a fighting spirit fitting of a trace of the heavenly demon. Sweat beaded on Kindred's forehead, but he didn't lose his smile. See? I don't have any other way if I want to live. Please wait just a little more. Nothing will change anyway. Nothing will change. Yes, sir. Can't you just think you're moving houses? I should definitely rip your mouth apart first. I apologize if I said anything to infuriate you. Kindred politely bowed. And I want to break that head. All that came in return was the Monkey King's murderous aura and smirk. However, it didn't matter to Kindred. From when he had caused the Monkey King's shedding to end up like this, no, from when he had refused to be served during their first meeting, Kindred had expected this. Being disliked by the god you served was dejecting, but it wasn't enough to bend Kindred's lunatic faith. Then you won't change your mind even now. I already said so, but if I leave here, there's only one reason why I would. The shedding grinned. To rip your mouth. Kindred frowned. In the end, he couldn't convince the shedding. It seemed he would have to forcefully progress with things now. The ceremony will start soon. We'll do our best not to make you uncomfortable, but things may be hard for a bit, so please prepare for it. He disappeared into smoke after he finished talking. Dum, dum, dum. The world began to tremble. It shook up and down as the sound of a bell ringing in a temple steadily descended upon them. As the shaking became worse, the space began to crack. What is? Yeon-woo came out from behind the column. What do you think it is? Those damned bastards began the ceremony. Psychos. They don't care about what the god they serve thinks, and they're talking about honor? Bulls. Annoyance was on the Monkey King's shedding's face. The crumpled space became whole again. He was probably fighting against the forces from the outside that were trying to seal the imaginary world. Yeon-woo thought that the Devil Army was going to win this fight. When I first heard the Devil Army was creating a sacrificial vessel, I thought you were in on it. Me? Why would I be? The shedding snorted. Let me just tell you this. The kiddo. The one they call the Heavenly Demon never wanted that. He's worse than me, so he doesn't like noisy things like this. Yeon-woo remembered what he heard about the Heavenly Demon having thrown the Devil Army away a long time ago. It was a long time ago when the Heavenly Demon fell into a deep slumber. It was when the head bishop replaced all 9 of the bishop spots after Black Dawn's fall. It's a truth that only a few people know, but the current bishops of the Devil Army are only halves that aren't permitted the Heavenly Demon's authority. No, to be exact, cursed halves. All they could do was borrow the strength of the Heavenly Demon from his other bodies using an artifact. There was information about the Devil Army in the diary. Yeon-woo learned the artifact they used was the Ruyi Bang some time ago. And the current head bishop who got rid of the previous head bishop and the other bishops is a real monster. There was a hierarchy within the 9 kings. Obviously, the Martial King and the Summer Queen were at the top. The one who was considered to be near their level was the head bishop. And if the head bishop was given permission to use the authority, no one knew what would happen. This was the reason why the Devil Army had caused this situation. If they could awaken the Monkey King through his shedding, they would be able to gain an authority indirectly. And if he changes his body, he can cleanse himself of the curse. The current head bishop was cursed by the heavenly demon. But if he moved into a new body, that would change. That was why Doyle was needed. The reason why Kindred had tried to take Cha in the past was to provide a potential candidate for the head bishop. Moreover, that was why he had appeared in the fight against Walpurgis Nacht to obtain the Philosopher's Stone. Yeon-woo wanted to mess this up for them. They always interfered with whatever he was doing, so in the end, there was nothing he could do but fight. Why are you like this? Can't you see? I was caught by the damned thing. Discover W stories on no/e/lbin.com. Yeon-woo looked closely at the chains around the shedding. Realizing what it was, his eyes widened. It was a metal he knew too fell. Is this divine iron? Yet. To be exact, it's the golden headband. The golden headband. It was the divine artifact that was placed on the Monkey King's head to stop him from wrecking chaos. He had taken off the headband after finishing everything the heavenly world assigned to him, but if the devil army had forced it back on? They even used the golden headband. Shit, I couldn't do anything. It meant the devil army had caught the Monkey King's shedding after a lot of preparation. It could seem impossible for such a powerful being to be caught, but there were probably limits to what he could do because he was in the imaginary world. And Sheng, that guy was flicked out too. Yeon-woo didn't know exactly why, but it seemed the dragon god couldn't get into this world anymore. Anyways. Why are you here? I saw you were causing a ruckus outside. Did you come to do the same here? You knew. Hey. This is my palace. If I don't know what's happening in my own front yard, I'd be a stupid not a human. The shedding flicked his finger. Then, the space in front of Yeon-woo wavered, and different scenes appeared. How are you? They. Toy. Who's? Copying. Me. Only. Amounts. To. That. Much? Dr. Doom seemed out of it because of the continuous magic attacks that Boo was shooting at him. Most of his magic circles were cracked, and his artifacts were broken. The magicians that he brought were already slaughtered by the skeletons. In a moment, the strongest of the magic tower were dead, and as their souls were absorbed by Yeon-woo, their knowledge was naturally absorbed by Boo. How can a person like you serve a mere human? What happened to you? It seemed Dr. Doom had realized Boo's identity. He was shouting as he vomited blood. Faust. The scene changed. A bone dragon and death nobles? What are these? Cain. Don't hide cowardly and come out. Give me my son. Yvonne shouted with a crumpled face. But his hands were tied by Shannon's consecutive attacks, and his feet were tied by the poison breath the bone dragon was emitting from above. He was trying to endure the attacks, as if proving why he was called Lion of the Battlefield. The more he did, the more intense Shannon's attacks became. The bone dragon wasn't able to show its full power because it was incomplete, so he had to be more active. Then, Shannon suddenly fell back. It was because someone appeared from the darkness. Yvonne frowned, not knowing what kind of tricks the new enemy had up his sleeves. It's been a while, father. His face hardened seeing his son's face. You have an interesting technique. It's a bit familiar. But he definitely died. No, is this the way you look like after you've died? Are you? In the next scene, Faceless and Han Ryong were in the middle of an intense battle. Faceless fought with the bandages like Faceless always did and tilted their head feeling something was wrong. Han Ryong also felt something strange from Faceless while he was swinging his 9 swords around. Who? I didn't think I'd meet you here. My dear friend. Suddenly, Faceless burst out laughing. It was an indifferent but chilling voice. It was a voice that no one had heard before. At the same time, the air around Faceless changed. As if Faceless was a different person, the hidden figure appeared. The bandages around Faceless became sharper. Faceless looked free-spirited all this time, but during this moment, Faceless looked like a true swordsman. Yvonne wouldn't be able to follow either. Kwang! Han Ryong shouted while pushing against the attacks. Faceless spotty. No, you swallowed him? Other scenes flashed by. The undead army, stepping on the pursuing forces. The monster portents continued to power up as they swallowed the souls. With the limits of the Black King released, they began to grow again. There was also Victoria and the Ice King protecting Yeon-woo's body. The scene ended there. Yeon-woo nodded, thinking there was no point in hiding what he was doing. Yes. Like you said, I've come to cause ruckus here, too. The Monkey King snorted, flabbergasted. I felt this before, but you're like that kiddo when it comes to creating incidents. And your personality, too. He added that there wouldn't be a boring moment here while he was tied up thanks to Yeon-woo. So how are you gonna cause a ruckus? I might seem like I'm relaxed right now, but I'm bloody tired. I'll serve the Monkey King, from now on. The Shedding's mouth curved wider. You're saying that you'll be like them? Dumb. The world shook again. It meant the ceremony was still progressing quickly. 00:04:21_36. There wasn't much time left for Yeon-woo. Taking into consideration the time it took to return to his body, he had less than 3 minutes left. I won't deny it. But I'll be better than them. Based on what? You know what they're after, don't you? They'll try to swallow the Monkey King as well and become another face of the heavenly demon. The reason why the Devil Army needed the Philosopher's Stone? They tried to excuse themselves saying it was to serve the Monkey King, but there was no need to tie up the Shedding here. Their true goal was something else. Swallowing the Monkey King's Shedding successfully. The head bishop was planning on becoming a new divine being. The Monkey King's Shedding frowned, already knowing that was the plan. So you want me to become your hunting dog? I don't want to. Even so, the Monkey King didn't want to give himself easily to Yeon-woo. He was looking at the despair and grief of the Black King. The bindings of the Black King. Do you think I don't know what it is? This time, Yeon-woo closed his mouth. Actually, his plan was to bind the Monkey King's Shedding to the cast before the Devil Army could do anything, like he had to the Cyclopes. But the Monkey King wasn't as easy to persuade as they were. Cuckoo. The shakings of the world became severe. The cracks in the space opened up. The world would soon disappear at this rate. 00:02:56_08. What should I do? Yeon-woo contemplated deeply. The Shedding didn't seem like it was going to fall for his persuasion. Then did he have to force him? But even though he had fallen, he was still a divine being. It was hard to do it without his consent. Then did he have to use the Bathory's vampiric sword? He didn't know if his skill would work properly because of the Shedding's situation. Then let's do this. The Shedding broke the silence again. Yeon-woo paid careful attention to words. How? Just swallow me. It was unexpected. Yeon-woo's eyes widened. But then, I'll disappear. Of course. The Shedding's eyes were sharper than ever. I don't want to be pulled away like a cow dragged to the slaughterhouse. I'll make my own destiny. I'll choose. The monkey born receiving the vitality of the sun and the moon. He was born a king, and he gained a divine level after overcoming many obstacles. Destiny was only something for him to destroy. So, he was planning on doing the same now. I'll choose where I'll die. It's an additional life I'm living right now anyway. I won't feel wronged if I die. Yeon-woo felt himself become overwhelmed by the Shedding's power. Was this the true appearance of a real king and god? He suddenly wanted to be like the Monkey King. However, I have 2 conditions. The Monkey King raised 2 fingers. Go ahead, sir. First, Step on those sons of B who made me like this. I will. Yeon-woo nodded. He was planning on doing that even if he didn't ask. Second. Wake me up later. But. Yes. You might think it's impossible because my existence will disappear. I said I wouldn't feel wronged if I died, but if I can, I still want to live a bit longer. So think about it well. There are still some ways to resummon me. Yeon-woo thought of the additional option in the cast of the Black King. Summons of the dead. It said only the dead could be summoned, but what if there was a way to get around that? How about it? Can you do it? Yes, sir. That mouth of yours. The Monkey King's shedding laughed for the first time. Then, in an arrogant manner, he spread his arms apart and spoke. Fine. Swallow. Thank you for everything. Yeon-woo bowed. You say that like we'll never see each other again. A smile spread on the shedding's face. Yeon-woo approached him with his right hand. Sharp teeth appeared on his palm. Clack, clack. Bathory's vampiric sword has been released. Yeon-woo moved his hand towards the shedding of the Monkey King. The shedding closed its eyes. Like how a sandcastle fell to the waves, the particles of the shedding crumbled and were absorbed into Bathory's vampiric sword. As the shedding of the Monkey King disappeared, the chains clattered to the ground. However, Yeon-woo couldn't hear anything. It was because of the enormous amount of holy power that was flowing into his hand. I knew there was a lot, but I didn't know it would be this much. A divine being was a divine being. It was obvious he would have a great number of blessings. Of course it would be difficult to swallow it whole. Crunch, crunch. He could hear his body creaking already. The Philosopher's Stone was spinning intensely, opening all possibilities, but the amount pouring out was too great. It felt as if he had opened a dam just to fill a small pot. It was a wonder how it wasn't cracking. Still, there was a silver lining in that his possibilities as a dragon had opened as he absorbed the Summer Queen. Although tied to the lower world, the draconic species was once a supernatural species equivalent to gods. The opening of that possibility was a considerable help to Yeon-woo. Drrrk. The imaginary world began to collapse as it was once a part of the shedding's body as well. Demonic divine dragon body is being formed 92, 93%, 95%. However, its power didn't disappear. Yeon-woo activated a skill to hold onto his shaking mind. Time difference. In the slowed world, he gritted his teeth. This isn't pleasant. Just because his thinking had sped up, it didn't mean his physical pain disappeared. Rather, he felt it even more clearly because he was more focused. He felt like he was going to die. Yeon-woo forced himself to endure it and racked his brain. It's hard to absorb the shedding completely. If I had a bit more time, I'd try, but 00:01:29_68. I have about 1 minute left at the most. I have to swallow the shedding in that time no matter what. Then. His eyes flashed sharply in the flood of information. I'll take just the core of the shedding and throw the rest away. It might have been a waste just to take 20% and throw the rest of it away, but for Yeon-woo, who wasn't anywhere near supernatural yet, it was an enormous amount. It was nearly impossible to pick out the core from all the vestiges of the shedding's existence. However, Yeon-woo didn't give up and slowed down time as much as he could to absorb the information. Within it, the life story of the shedding, no, the Monkey King was held. He became a god after being born as the king of monkeys, then became Buddha after he fell back down to the lower world. Fighting with the heavenly world and battling against the demon kings with his blood brothers. The growth of the Monkey King, laughing, crying, and walking side by side with his friends poured into Yeon-woo's head. There, Yeon-woo was able to review the 72 bien that he had. The Monkey King hadn't used the 72 bien he learned from his teacher, Subadai, simply as bien. He used it as magic, a fighting technique, or as mujang. The Monkey King was able to take it in a new direction as he mixed and combined the various methods. Yeon-woo was able to learn a lot of things from it. Moreover, he also learned a bit more about the inheritance the Jichen Dizeong left behind, the heavenly bracket. Tien, Jichen Dizeong is the Korean version of the title of Sun Wukong. From the countless information, he collected the most important sections. He felt like he could completely understand the 72 bien at this rate. No, to be exact, Yeon-woo was slowly becoming the Monkey King. He was synchronizing with the divine being too quickly for him to be aware. That moment. Boom! Yeon-woo was suddenly hit by something. He looked up in surprise. Athena was standing there, larger than he remembered, with sad eyes. "Don't be eaten." As she spoke, she spread her arms out and held Yeon-woo. "You have things to do." Only then was Yeon-woo able to see himself. The dragon scales that had grown on his flesh shined goldenly, and his hair reached his shoulders having turned white. He couldn't check, but he felt like his eyes were probably shining a fiery gold as well. Gold and white were the symbols of the Monkey King. It seemed he was being swallowed while he was trying to swallow the shedding. He was completely drunk on power. If Athena hadn't appeared to help, what would have happened to him? He shivered and turned back to thank her. However, Athena had vanished. Where had she gone? No. How was she able to manifest in the first place? Athena is silent. He was curious, but he just shook his head and checked his body. The white hair and gold scales that were the symbol of the Monkey King were gone. Instead, he could feel a powerful strength from his body that he didn't have before. Level. His level had increased strikingly. He thought that all the possibilities that he hadn't been able to digest from the Summer Queen's soul had revealed themselves. More than anything, I didn't know the 72 bien would do something so amazing. Your understanding of the 72 bien has increased. The proficiency has increased dramatically. Your affinity for water has deepened. Your affinity for gold has deepened. Your affinity for wood has deepened. You have gained an understanding of the superior property 5 penances. The title Descendant of the Monkey King has been changed to Heir of the Jichen Dizeong. You have satisfied multiple conditions and gained a clue relating to inheritance of the Jichen Dizeong. Yeon-woo was able to recreate the 72 bien based on his higher understanding of the Monkey King and open the inheritance of the Jichen Dizeong. The 5 signature skills the Monkey King had completed after organizing everything he learned. Visit nfelben.c/m for L test vels. Nuabai yoksi. Yuzuhang. Shinmo Kryong. Wei em rihun. Ji Yung Kangpo. The artistic skills that separated the stem of the 72 bien, the 5 penances, and went beyond the fields of bien and martial studies to create new laws. Yeon-woo succeeded in knowing what the 5 signature skills were, but he didn't know how to approach it. It was hard to touch based on the knowledge he already knew. However, he felt like it was possible for him to approach it slowly with the dragon's knowledge, so he shouted with satisfaction. He raised his fiery golden eyes up. 00:42:11_25. It was a bit tight but enough to return if he rushed. But he thought he could do something else before he returned. There were many remains of the shedding around him. It was a waste to throw them all away. Wasn't there a way to use them as well? Organizing his thoughts, he quickly turned his body in another direction. Current awakening progress, 98%. *******. Finally, the god is descending. Here. Kukuku. The center of the palace began to shake intensely. With kindred's cheer, the consciousness of the bishops and diocesans expanded farther. Mahal Bata, Tamaha. Mahal Bata, Tamaha. To be exact, it was just the owners of the golden headband. The power that was able to bring up the Monkey King's shedding from the imaginary world. It wasn't easy to control the golden headband. Only after kindred and other bishops and diocesan bishops worked together did it move. The group unconsciousness was pulling at the golden headband. Right now, the golden headband was probably tightly wrapping around the shedding in the imaginary world. The contents pouring into the sacrificial vessel were extraordinary. It was holy power. Kindred trembled with ecstasy. Even after becoming bishops, they weren't allowed authorities and couldn't even dream of using holy power. What an exhilarating sight it was to see real holy power. They were all traces of the Monkey King's life. He felt overwhelmed with just this taste, so how powerful would it be when he observed it carefully? Most importantly, the shedding was just a cover. Then how powerful would the real Monkey King be? And the heavenly demon? He was able to reaffirm that everything else on the 98th floor was fake and the only real god was the heavenly demon. And the head bishop, who will be born with a new face after accepting that shedding, will be the eternal leader of our devil army. Madness flashed in Kindred's eyes. His lunatic faith was for the heavenly demon and the head bishop. If the heavenly world had the heavenly demon, the lower world had the head bishop. And both of them would honor him. He shivered, thinking about the favor of the god that would come pouring down on him. But why isn't it ending? Kindred's eyes narrowed. The contents flowing into the vessel were just remains, the actual core of the shedding couldn't be seen. Was he still rebelling? But there would be limits to how long he could resist in his condition. It wasn't good for the process to be extended. Oh, well. Narrowing his eyes, he contacted the group's subconsciousness. He was going to help them pull the shedding in himself. However, the group subconsciousness was too quiet. It wasn't supposed to be like this. They were supposed to be pulling in the golden headband? Just then, Kindred saw someone in the corner of his eyes. The person must have felt his presence too because they turned their body in his direction. I was just about to go see you. I guess you couldn't wait and came first. A person with black mask and clothes with wings of fire on their back. It was a familiar face. The face Kindred wanted to chew up and swallow. However, there was something different about him. Through the mask, his eyes were a burning gold color. Fiery golden eyes. It was the power that only heirs who learned the 72 Bien to a deep extent could have. You. While Kindred was shocked by the unexpected incident. Kwang. His consciousness was suddenly kicked out of the group subconsciousness. He barely got himself together from the dizziness. Wondering what was happening, he tried to step forward. An intense storm was whirling in the center of the palace. It was hard to stay steady and tell up from down. Suddenly, he felt something pour down onto his face. It was sticky and uncomfortable. Reflexively, he wiped it with his hand to check. Blood. To be exact, it was sticky blood combined with flesh. Just when he looked around with anxiety. Poo-poo-pung. The diocesans exploded like fireworks like they had been waiting. Kindred couldn't understand the unrealistic sight in front of him and screamed after a belated realization. Cain. The vessel that was supposed to hold the shedding was flowing backwards. He didn't know how it happened, but as the core disappeared, the power that didn't have anywhere to go had exploded. The group subconsciousness, which had been trying to control the power, was impacted, and the priests who couldn't take it were swept away. Bishops, diocesans, and the high priest. There was no ranking to death. If they couldn't take it, they died, and even if they did endure it, they were poisoned by the holy power and left in a blank state. When even the vessel exploded, the broken pieces of the Ruyi Bang scattered into the air. Cain. Kindred's mind exploded as well. The moment that he had been waiting for decades, for tens of years, the lunatic effort that he had put into it, had disappeared into thin air. However, there was absolutely nothing he could do. All he managed to do was hold himself up in the current of power. His body was tattered. The Monkey King asked me. In front of him, Yeon-woo suddenly appeared, flashing his fiery golden eyes. To rip your mouth apart first. Cain. Yeon-woo planted his magic bayonet into the mouth of the screaming person and spun it around. Pug. Quack. Because Yeon-woo was currently intangible, he didn't cut Kindred's neck physically. He had forced the power of the shedding that was still exploding onto Kindred. Another shadow? It's like he's an amoeba constantly dividing itself into more cells. Yeon-woo clicked his tongue seeing Kindred's corpse scatter. It seemed there was never a time when he wasn't a shadow. 00:26:49_78. Yeon-woo checked the countdown and turned around. He could see Doyle bowing with blank eyes on the floor. Let's go back. ******. Rumble. The earthquake that began in the center spread to the rest of the palace. Dust and rocks fell from the ceiling. The first people to become nervous about the toppling palace were the mercenaries who were continually being sent into the palace. Keek. Save me. Kook. They wanted to escape from the dangerous situation, but escape was impossible when they couldn't tell up from down. The undead army kept on swarming in and stepped on them. It was like elephants were stepping on ants. A god of Olympus, Thanatos, is thrilled. A god of the Chan sect, king of seven hells, observes the dead souls calmly. A god of Ea, Nergal, nods with satisfaction. He expresses his satisfaction at the mortal being able to use the power well. A god of Deva, Kasidagarba, shakes his head from side to side and watches the situation carefully. A demon of Niflheim, Hell, licks his lips with his red tongue. His body trembles from happiness. Amadeva checks if there are any souls that will go to him. He expresses his regret that he can't do anything about the great harvest. The gods of death nod. They all speak as one. Message, his. The demons of death are happy. They enjoy their festival and deliver a common message. Message, successor. The gods and demons didn't stop or hesitate to reveal messages as if they were overjoyed by the situation. The mercenaries were angry that they were just entertainment for the gods and demons of death, and they even felt helpless, not being able to do anything about it. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. There was only one god who was looking at the battle from another point of view. And with her at the lead, other types of gods and demons began to show themselves. A god of Olympus, Ares, nods with satisfaction. A god of the Chan sect, Prince Neza, comes to observe the situation after hearing the news. War. The gods of war and fighting began to show themselves. Here, war was spreading with death. If it was a simple fight, they wouldn't have been interested because it was just one of the many wars that occurred in the tower. A god of Asgard, Tyr, slowly puts down his book of law. He observes the situation with impartial eyes. The problem was that Yeon-woo was fighting the countless number of forces alone. To be exact, it was that Yeon-woo was fighting with all his subordinates, but showing an amount of firepower that no lord in history had been able to do. Maybe long ago in the past, the vampiric Lord Bathory had exuded this much power. It was understandable for the gods and demons related to war to be watching so keenly. He was the first person they were interested in after the martial king. A demon of the G sect, Vimalasitra, nods with satisfaction. He compliments player number 4 being able to stand against all these soldiers. Vimalasitra offers his authority, Gubatera. Agars shows his discomfort, saying not to even look at what's his. All gods ignore him. All demons ignore him. Sir Nunos is silent. Yeon-woo's directory of authorities increased at a quicker pace. These crazy bastards. Kwang. Dr. Doom was flicked away with a loud explosion. The barrier protecting him was already in tatters, so the impact from crashing into the firm wall broke his spine. He didn't even have the strength to vomit blood anymore. Because of the continued attacks, he couldn't get a grip on himself. Corpses of magicians were piled up around him. Despair filled his eyes. And as the messages from gods and demons kept on popping up, he felt like he was going to die from frustration. Magicians believed in the natural law of what was around them. This was why many of them were atheists. They just considered the gods and demons on the 98th supernaturalists who weren't too different from normal players. Dr. Doom was one of these believers. He hated feeling like a monkey in a zoo. However, there was an old Sunbi whom he admired like a god. The creator of sword magic and the originator of demon studies along with De Roy. The one who created the Emerald Tablet, opening the path to the Philosopher's Stone. Faust. The problem was that they met as enemies. How? Persistent. The two inferno sights in the air narrowed, as if in an unpleasant mood. Dr. Doom felt more dismayed as the situation went on. Bu wasn't as strong as the Faust he knew. Faust was once someone who stood against the Summer Queen. His magic wasn't merely this level, he could create miracles. It was clear that something was missing from his memory. However, even so, it was still there. The power that forced everything around it to bow down. The blue eyes that looked as if they could swallow demons. His signature hadn't faded. Become. Fertilizer. 4. Master. The space opened, and a large hand covered Dr. Doom. He didn't have any strength to resist anymore. He just didn't understand why Faust was the subordinate of a mere player. Also, it suddenly occurred to him that the reason why he didn't get a particularly good divination that day. It was most likely that it was the end of the line for him. Teacher. His thoughts ended there. SSSS. Bu slowly turned in another direction after swallowing Dr. Doom's soul and recovering some of his knowledge and memory. The cave was collapsing. He had spent more time than he expected. Now, as his great master had commanded, he had to proceed with the last of his orders. Wake up! On Bu's command, all the undead connected to Bu cried up at the sky. Check-esh! Void descended where Bu disappeared and erased Dr. Doom's corpse. Stones came tumbling down. Asterisk. Osiris observes the battlefield. The destruction of the cave sped up. The players who had been trying to stay to finish the fight felt danger. Khan and Yvonne were among them. Clang! The two people fought intensely like they weren't father and son and turned their bodies in the opposite direction after one last clang, shooting aura in all directions. Cashing! Quack! The two bishops, who were watching Khan, plopped down on the floor before they knew it. While their attention was somewhere else because of the sudden issue with the ceremony, they were hit without mercy. Khan took back the blood sword he was holding and turned back around. Let's stop here for today. Khan! Yvonne shouted in a tearful voice at his son's cold tone. However, all that came in response was Khan's cold gaze. Don't say my name with that dirty mouth. You don't have the right. Do you still hate me? Hate? Of course there's nothing like that. Khan scoffed. You need to have expectations for someone in order to hate them. Khan. Ivan's voice was filled with sadness as he said Khan's name. He was famed on the battlefield as the Iron Lion, but in front of his son, he was just a bad father who couldn't stand tall. Get the latest chapters on nfelben.com. It was unpleasant for Khan to see that side of his father. Stop pretending. Didn't you expect this the moment you threw Mom away? He felt disgusted watching the perpetrator act like the victim. Khan walked away. Void settled around him and hid his presence. Shannon and the Bone Dragon quietly stepped back as well. Yvonne ended up turning back with his hand stretched out in the emptiness. Then, he began to run. His subordinates were probably still in the cave. He had to save those he could. Khan stopped in the darkness and watched his father's back as he moved away. His shoulders were small, and his back was curved. He didn't see the father who used to be a large umbrella to protect him and give him piggyback rides anymore. Khan. As if sensing Khan's complex thoughts, Nike appeared and hugged him with his two wings. The warm fire calmed down his confused mind. How does a guy like Kane have a kid like you? He joked as he quickly began to move again. He didn't have to worry about getting lost. The lich that Yeon-woo commanded had been sending him messages, so his escape route was already guaranteed. How much stronger did Cain get in that time? It probably took quite a bit of time to build up all these undead. Was he aiming to become a lord? But he also had potential to become a supernaturalist. Moreover, the messages from gods and demons that filled up the cave were recommending an apostle position for him. He's amazing in many ways. While Khan was feeling baffled about Yeon-woo, the void suddenly disappeared, and he could feel a bright light. As if it had been waiting, the cave collapsed and completely disappeared. The mountain vibrated throughout. Khan could see Yeon-woo already outside of the cave. And Doyle, who was sleeping in Yeon-woo's arms. Doyle. Khan quickly dashed to where Yeon-woo was. Victoria discovered him and spread her arms out with a smile to hug him, but Khan subconsciously avoided her and reached Yeon-woo. "Hey!" Victoria shouted, having hugged the air, but Khan didn't hear it as he looked at Doyle. Doyle was quietly sleeping, like he didn't know what had happened around him. Khan quickly reviewed the 72 bien he had. Bien was what made Doyle into a revenant, the condition of being a puppet, so he thought there could be a way to fix him through bien. Shiver. Just then, Doyle's eyelashes fluttered. As his eyes opened slowly, he saw Khan in front of him. "Young Doyle." Khan hugged Doyle. He felt apologetic for making Doyle suffer through everything, and he was grateful that he opened his eyes again. "The F, why are you being so cringy?" Doyle tried to push Khan away, unfamiliar with this sort of behavior from him, but Khan didn't let go. Victoria, who had been sulking, approached them with a warm smile. The Ice King nodded in relief. Like that, all the commotion ended. No, it looked like it did. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Hook hook. It's a relief, isn't it, Master? Nike wiped his tears with his wing and turned his head to Yeon-woo because he wasn't reacting. Master. Yeon-woo's gaze was fixed on the air in front of him, not Khan and Doyle. Athena looks at you with sad eyes. There were many gods and demons looking at him. After this battle, the gods and demons of death seemed to be accepting him as the successor of the Black King, and the gods and demons of death took an interest in him. His list of authorities exceeded 800. But of all the gazes, there was one that was different. Not a gaze filled with greed or rapacity but of sadness. Why? He had defeated the Devil Army and saved Khan and Doyle. Now, since everything was taken care of, he could move on to Tartarus and help Hades. Why wasn't Athena's gaze changing? Did something else happen in Tartarus? But Athena wouldn't be able to know because the view of Tartarus was blocked from the heavenly world. Just then, something flashed through his head. Something he didn't want to consider. Khan. What? Khan looked back at Yeon-woo from calming Doyle down and tilted his head. Yeon-woo's voice was strangely cold. Step back. What are you? Step back. Yeon-woo shouted in a tone unlike himself. Khan stood up before he knew it and fell away from Doyle. Victoria and the Ice King stepped back as well, feeling something wasn't right. Doyle just looked at Yeon-woo. There was a smile on his face, but no emotions could be felt from it. Like a doll. Until when do you plan on acting? Yeon-woo glared at Doyle. Head Bishop. I opened my eyes because I heard something strange while I was sleeping. It seems like things are a mess. Doyle smiled bitterly as he looked around him. The curse of the heavenly demon had ended up messing many things up. If only he didn't fall asleep to transform, things wouldn't have gone so awry. Anyways. I feel it every time, but I really want to do something about those dragon eyes. Thanks to them, I missed seeing Heaven Wing's daughter. Just then, the aura around Doyle completely changed. A heavy and intense wavelength extended around him. It had Doyle's face, but it wasn't Doyle. It was another being with Doyle's face. Black demonic energy wrapped around him, and his hair turned white. His eyes flashed red. Read the lat st stories nnvlbin.com. Head Bishop. Where is Doyle? Khan, gritting his teeth, glared at the head bishop. He was stopping himself from running at him. I don't know. Where is he? The head bishop smiled lightly. Something disconnected in Khan's head at that moment. You son of a b. Boom. Khan threw his body at the head bishop. Blood poured out of his cut hand and took the form of a sword. Flow of blood. It was the signature skill of Blood Sword. It didn't just end with many being combined to take the form of a sword, but it amplified attack power by creating wavelengths when it was swung, and it could even attack enemies that were far away. But in the eyes of the head bishop, it only looked like child's play. He put his hands behind his back and lightly rolled his feet. Boom! But the result wasn't light at all. All of the mountains trembled, and cracks began to appear on the surface. Khan, who was running at him, was blown away. The Ice King and Victoria were swept away as well while they had been waiting for a chance to attack. Dust clouds descended around then, and as if that wasn't enough, the space began to twist. In there, the head bishop rubbed his creaking hands and feet. I can't rein in my strength because I'm not used to my body yet. It was why he needed the power of the shedding. He lightly clicked his tongue. What he wanted wasn't simply to become a divine being. He had wanted the power to erase the curse engraved upon his soul. However, his long preparations went up in flames. He felt tired of thinking about whether there would be anything to replace the shedding or if he had to look for the remains of another face. There wasn't much time left for him. Or do I really have to pull in their power? The head bishop realized that the guy who gave him all this trouble wasn't among those blown away. He clasped his hands behind his back again and lifted his head. The space moved again, removing the white dust clouds, revealing Yeon-woo high up in the air with his wings of fire spread apart. The head bishop realized that hundreds of Ruyi Bang pieces were circling around him. They were what used to be the sacrificial vessel. Ownership of them had gone over to Yeon-woo. Are you going to seal me with this? How amusing! The head bishop laughed lightly and took a step forward. Although he was in Doyle's small body, an enormous presence was still emitted from him like he was a giant. But... Gulp! He paused in the middle of dashing to Yeon-woo. Blood was vomiting from his mouth. Oh, dear! Is this too much? The disharmony of soul and body. Doyle's vessel was still not enough to hold the head bishop's great soul. But because he had still forced it in. He had probably only lasted this long because this was Doyle's body. A body like Doyle's, which was abnormally advanced with divine abilities, wasn't easy to obtain. Why? Just then, the pieces of the Ruyi Bang around the head bishop began to whirl around. 72 Bien Bong, in. Kwang. The pieces pattered down. Various Bien were used, and Bu appeared through a new space at some point and was adding on more magic. The number of attacks increased. It felt as if the 5 mountains would collapse. The head bishop let go of one hand behind his back and waved it in front of him. Like he was pushing aside curtains, the pieces attacking him were swept away. It was an unbelievable divine energy. This. He clenched his left hand into a fist. Eyes how you do it. And extended it in the air in front of him. Kwaya. Demonic energy wrapped around his fist and exploded. The explosion happened right in front of Yeon-woo. It was a shock that made his body feel like it was being beat up. Yeon-woo was only able to endure it after protecting himself with his wings of fire. The tens of layers of barriers Bu made shattered with the explosion. The head bishop was too strong. How was he able to handle such strength with an unfamiliar body like that? For a moment, Yeon-woo thought of the Martial King and the Summer Queen. The head bishop was as strong as them, like he had expected. If he was in his real body, what would have happened to him? At the same time, he had another thought. How was Jeong-woo able to fight against this guy? While he was falling to the ground, he barely restored his wings of fire and caught his balance. And pat! With blink activated, he reached the head bishop. At the same time, he exploded his condensed black aura. Krrrrng. The destructiveness of the wave of fire made the head bishop shiver. Surprise spread across his face as he barely escaped it. I heard a lot about you, and I see you're more amazing than the rumors. The 6 new stars? How can they put you in the same group? Yes. You should amount to this much to be able to get in my way. Yes. Of course. The head bishop stretched out his hand and bent forward. All right, then shall we see if you can stop this, too. His hand quickly split through the air. Space was cut and what was in his way was swept away. Poo poo pung. Yeon-woo blocked the head bishop's strikes with black aura. It was a speedy attack that was hard to follow with his eyes, but draconic eyes, extrasensory perception and time difference helped to fill in for what he lacked. Still, the head bishop had the upper hand. Yeon-woo had become stronger after swallowing the shedding, but he hadn't been able to learn the 72 Bion's tricks and the heaven bracket yet, so there were limits to what he could do. While the intense battle was occurring, pat! A shadow opened behind Yeon-woo, and his subordinates jumped out. Shannon climbed high into the sky atop the bone dragon and spewed out poison breath. Han Ryeong and Rebecca aimed for the head bishop's blind spots. Bu flicked his finger and drew different magic circles in the air. In the opened void, magic attacks came pouring out. It was the power that made the alliance into nothing. Kwa kwa kwe. What an amusing thing you have there. However, the head bishop was still relaxed, like he was out for a stroll. When he rolled his feet again, the earth suddenly shot up and blocked the bone dragon from moving. While it hesitated, trying to catch its balance, the head bishop didn't miss his opportunity and hit the air in front of him. Quang! The bone dragon's right wing exploded. While the large body pitched towards the ground, Shannon jumped and tried to attack the head bishop. However, eyes it there! The head bishop stretched out his thumb and middle finger to draw a line mid-air. Steps appeared in the air and cut Shannon's body. No way! Shannon disappeared with those words. One down. The head bishop smiled with satisfaction and flicked a wavegrid, which was aimed at his neck. In that steady position, he turned his body around and reached out with his left hand. 2 swords shot into them like magnets. Rebecca and Han Ryeong's faces hardened. 3 more to go. He closed his left hand. The superior quality swords cracked. While their pieces blew in the air, demonic energy exploded once again to fling away Rebecca and Han Ryeong. He said he wasn't familiar with this body, but he had already eliminated 3 of Yeon-woo's subordinates. And the last one. He flicked his finger to where Bu was. Tack! Space disconnection. As the space twisted, the inferno sights in the air disappeared. The head bishop blocked off any interference from the outside. You have some good subordinates, but they're nothing in front of such overwhelming power. He smiled looking at Yeon-woo, who was still fighting against his right hand. Right. Quang. All of Yeon-woo's skills were crushed when the head bishop swung his sword again. Yeon-woo was pushed back far away. There was a trench in the ground where he was propelled backward. Blood dripped from the hand that was holding the grid. There was too much of a gap in their strengths. Yeon-woo painstakingly felt how great of an existence the 9 kings were. He felt as if he had met a great city wall. Just give up. You can't defeat me. Still, I'll offer you a suggestion. I'll give you a bishop position. Serve the heavenly demon. Doyle clasped his hands behind his back with a smile. No. If you help me to become another face of the heavenly demon, this position will be yours. It's a shame the others died, but if you all fill those positions, it will be a great blessing for us. The head bishop took a liking to Yeon-woo and Kan while he watched them during the ceremony. If things worked out, he genuinely wanted to give them the head bishop position. Of course, Yeon-woo wasn't one to be tempted by such words. What's that crazy bastard going on about? It's because he's the leader of the lunatic believers. But he's too strong. I heard that monster's the only one who's still growing among the 9 kings. It seems the rumors were correct. Han Ryeong and Shannon appeared behind Yeon-woo and muttered. Because they were undead, they didn't die, but because their existences had almost been extinguished, their bodies were a lot fainter than before. Rebecca, who appeared quietly above them, didn't say much, but her face was determined. If I can take in heaven bracket, if I can absorb the strength of the rest of the shedding, will I be able to catch up? Yeon-woo quickly checked the area between him and the head bishop. The head bishop was pushing himself into Doyle's body. Yeon-woo thought there might be a way to attack his openings. He soon arrived at a conclusion. There is. He tried getting into form again to fight the head bishop. His body screamed in pain, but he forced his sword up. He gritted his teeth at the fact that he couldn't move his hand. But I can't use heaven bracket immediately. Then what if I activated authorities? Will that work? The answer came soon. No. Then? If I can amplify my strength temporarily by accepting all the authorities. The answer this time was. It works. The gods and messages began to send Yeon-woo messages after reading his thoughts. Thanatos looks at you expectantly. Nergal suggests you examine his authority. Osiris is expectant. Ares is expectant. Prince Neza is expectant. Vimalasatra makes a suggestion to you. Agar screams, saying not to look at what's his. All godly societies ignore him. All demonic societies ignore him. They want an answer from you. Messages popped up endlessly. Current possible authorities, 925. If he accepted all of them, he was sure that he'd be able to fight head-to-head with the head bishop temporarily. Then there wasn't any time to waste. Hey. Yeon-woo breathed in deeply and woke up the senses in his body. Hub. He gripped the grid harder. 900 great beings extended their hands to Yeon-woo as if they had been waiting. You have gained Thanatos' authority, Night of Harvest. You have gained Nergal's authority, Hagyubi Al-sung. You have gained Vimalasatra's authority, Gubidara. You have gained Prince Neza's authority, King of 10,000 soldiers. You are obtaining too many authorities. Your body cannot withstand them. It is suggested that you stop contracting the remaining possible apostle positions. Warning. You are obtaining too many authorities. It is possible your body may be destroyed. Warning. You are obtaining too. Authorities symbolized the powers of the beings. Crunch, crunch. Holy powers that didn't align with each other collided. Many voices rang in his ear. However, that much power filled his body. Vigrid cried out. Yeon-woo opened his draconic eye's authority and combined heaven bracket with it. Then, he brought down Vigrid powerfully. Third dragon body awakening. All authorities released. Wave of fire. Heaven bracket lightning strike. Krrrrrng. A storm of fire, lightning, and holy power fell where the head bishop was. It was too much for even the head bishop to handle. What the? He was able to avoid the brunt of the lightning strike, but he was still injured, burns scattered across his body. You heretic! You dare! To me! The head bishop gathered his demonic energy with a crumpled face. He was worried his body would fail him, but he couldn't let Yeon-woo get away with it. However. What? Strangely, he couldn't use his body. He glared at Yeon-woo with wide eyes. Sorry, but it's over. Although Yeon-woo was sitting on the ground from overexertion, he snickered at the head bishop. The head bishop could feel a small but deep injury on the back of his head. It was an injury that didn't hurt his body. However, the location of the injury was where his soul and body were connected. Just. When the head bishop turned back, Khan was gasping as he glared at him. Blood dripped down his right hand. Blood bomb. A skill that condensed blood. While the head bishop was busy with the lightning strike, Khan had quickly cut his veins and thrown his blood. Was this what they were after in the first place? The head bishop had a lot to say, but he fell over. His soul was kicked back to its original location. Plop. Yeon-woo was finally able to pass out only after seeing the head bishop fall. Yellow sparks of holy power jumped around his body.